In the grand halls of the Galactic Assembly, among 100 flags from worlds with names like Jerthon Prime and Valaris III, the Earth standard stood out, not because of awe, but because of amusement. Humans had arrived only 30 years. Prior, a blink in the cosmic timeline. They brought with them handshakes, bright eyes, and an almost childlike enthusiasm for everything extraterrestrial. Other species, ancient and refined, watched them like curious elders observing excited children playing with tools they didn't understand. To the Tarsenians, with their crystalline minds and multi-threaded diplomacy, humans were too blunt. To the Kelavari, who sang in mathematical tones and lived across 4 dimensions, humans were too simple. And to the Krell Syndicate, a powerful bloc known for its influence and pride, humans were little more than comic relief. In Senate, chambers, jokes about primitive primates circulated in private transmissions. At diplomatic dinners, human foods were met with forced smiles and barely concealed grimaces. Behind every polite nod was a shared belief. Humans didn't belong. At the grown-up table, not yet. And the humans? They smiled anyway. They offered trade routes, signed peace agreements, and asked thoughtful questions. They studied, observed, and tried. The Galactic Concord noticed, but rarely took them seriously. When human ships docked at starports, they were given the outermost bays. When Earth proposed security measures or tech-sharing pacts, they were outvoted or dismissed. "Let them learn," said one Kalari diplomat, waving off a proposal. "They're still in their infancy," murmured a Varnari elder, brushing aside a data packet on Earth's defense systems. "They're loud, emotional, and terribly optimistic," said a Krell speaker with a grin. "Endearing, really." Humanity had no history of galactic war. They had not faced extinction by black hole harvesters or rebuilt from bioplasmic plagues. They had only just discovered faster-than-light travel, after all. Their species hadn't been tempered by cosmic struggle, not like the others. What the rest of the galaxy didn't understand was that humans had struggled, just differently. They had risen from stone and fire, crossed oceans with sails, and survived on planets that turned against them. They had built machines to breach the skies, then left their moon's dusty surface behind with nothing but equations and hope. They had faced their own divisions and somehow still formed a planet-wide council, united under the Earth Charter. Their wars, while local to a single world, had taught them hard lessons in pain, resilience, and resolve, but humans didn't boast. Not here. Not yet. They were content to be underestimated. They smiled at the jokes. They nodded politely when told to take smaller roles. They listened when others spoke, and they remembered everything. Ambassador Noah Elian, Earth's chief representative, stood tall in the Concord's main chamber. Clad in the Earth delegation's Navy uniform, she wore a silver pin on her lapel, the emblem of the Terran Peace Fleet. No one gave it much thought. To most, it was a symbolic badge from a species with more dreams than teeth. Yet behind her calm eyes, Noah understood the truth. Earth wasn't defenseless. Earth wasn't naive. They were simply patient. On Earth, deep beneath the surface, construction bays hummed. On the far side of the moon, arrays of silent satellites waited in shadow. In the asteroid belt, automated. Forges shaped alloys no alien had yet seen. Humanity had spent 30 years smiling, learning, and being underestimated. But they had not been idle. The galaxy's laughter echoed louder than ever, and somewhere, in a secure command center beneath the surface of Mars, a signal waited. A single code word that, when spoken, would wake the first warship the galaxy had never seen. But for now, humans continued to smile. Let them laugh. Let them mock. Because soon, everything would be different. The stars above New Thessalon sparkled peacefully, their pale glow reflecting on silver rooftops and domed greenhouses. On the surface, the colony resembled a dream, wide streets lined with solar lamps, glass-paneled classrooms filled with eager students, and gardens carefully cultivated from Earth's finest seeds. New Thessalon was humanity's most successful off-world colony. It was also its most vulnerable. Built on the edge of mapped space, it sat at the boundary of unregulated territory, an area many galactic powers considered fair game for reclamation. Humans had chosen it carefully, believing diplomacy and respect for Concord boundaries would protect it. But the galaxy wasn't always interested in respect. Above the colony, shimmering trails of light painted the atmosphere as ships entered orbit. Not human ships. The Krell Syndicate had arrived. Their vessels were angular, dark, and silent, forming a net across the sky. No announcements, no explanations. Just presence, undeniable and deliberate. At first, the colonists assumed it was a mistake. They contacted local authorities, sent a signal to Earth, and requested confirmation through official Concord channels. But hours passed. Then a full day. The Krell made no move to communicate, and no message was returned from the Concord. On the second day, New Thessalon's orbital relay went silent. One moment it was broadcasting civilian logs and trade manifests, the next, static. In the control tower, Director Hale, a former diplomat turned colonial governor, stared at the frozen interface. Her fingers hovered above the console, replaying the last few seconds of footage before the blackout. There had been a flicker, a shadow, and then nothing. "They cut us off," said her deputy, voice tight with disbelief. "They've jammed long-range communication." Director Hale looked out the observation window. The Krell ships hadn't fired a single shot. There were no explosions, no alarms, just the quiet presence of something immense and patient. The Krell didn't need to use force. Their message was clear: you're not protected here. In the Galactic Concord's central directory, New Thessalon's status hadn't changed. On paper, it was still a human territory under protection, but in practice, it had been abandoned. No Navy arrived, no official response was broadcast. The rest of the galaxy moved on. On Krell networks, private channels buzzed with amusement. "They built gardens at the edge of the jungle," one analyst wrote. "What did they expect?" another replied. In Concord space, other diplomats quietly acknowledged the event as unfortunate but expected. Some even labeled it an opportunity. A test to see whether the humans would retreat or negotiate. But Earth never sent a negotiator. Instead, Director Hale received a short, encoded message the next morning. It came through a deep-layered backup relay, a line no one remembered was there. It read, "Acknowledged, evacuation denied, defense engaged, stand by for arrival." She read it twice, uncertain. Defense? Arrival? New Thessalon had no warships. The ice. Colonial patrol vessels were civilian class, good for surveying asteroid fields, not for confronting a blockade. But the message was clear. Earth wasn't retreating, and somewhere far beyond the Krell's detection range, something was moving. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't an army. It was just one ship. It had been built in silence, hidden in plain sight. It bore no proud banners, no gleaming decals, no ceremonial fanfare. It was a quiet answer to 30 years of laughter. The stars continued to shine over New Thessalon, unaware of the change sweeping through the void. But, on the colony below, people looked upward, not in fear, but in hope. Something was coming, and for the first time, the Krell ships above seemed a little less certain. At precisely 0430 Standard Colony Time, a ripple tore through the outer edge of New Thessalon's atmosphere. Not with sound, but with distortion. The stars above blinked for a heartbeat, as if the universe itself had hesitated. Then space folded inward, and a single ship emerged. No broadcast, no warning, just presence. The UNS Horizon Breaker slipped into orbit like a shadow passing across the moon. It was long and sharp-edged, with no visible thrusters, ports, or weapon bays. Its hull was matte black, with silver veins that pulsed faintly, giving the illusion it was alive, or listening. From the Krell command vessel, it looked like nothing on record. No heat signatures, no propulsion trails, no identifying markers. Just a mass of unknown alloy shaped by design principles the Krell didn't recognize. Single vessel, human origin, unregistered class, reported the Krell sensor officer, tilting their crest in confusion. The Krell commander narrowed his eyes. Send a standard challenge pulse. Demand identification. The pulse was sent. The response came in the form of a calm, clear human voice across every Krell frequency. This is the UNS Horizon Breaker. This colony is under Terran protection. Vacate the system immediately. There was no threat in the tone, no raised voice, just a statement delivered like a fact, as if the outcome had already been decided. The Krell officers exchanged glances. Then they laughed. A single human ship challenging a blockade? They had over 24 vessels in formation, from light interceptors to a Dread-class carrier. The human vessel had no visible weapons, no backup, no support. Disable it, the commander said. In a synchronized motion, 6 Krell cruisers locked their targeting arrays and fired directed energy pulses. What happened next defied explanation. The pulses vanished before impact, absorbed by a shimmer of light that expanded from the human ship's hull like a ripple through glass. No explosions, no noise. The Horizon Breaker didn't move. It simply rejected the attack. Then it responded, not with a blast, not with retaliation, but with precision. 3 of the attacking Krell ships suddenly powered down. No damage was visible, no smoke, no ruptures. But their systems failed. Lights dimmed, engines fell silent, entire bridges went dark. Crews floated in weightless confusion. The remaining Krell ships backed off immediately. "Pull us out of targeting range," barked the commander, now standing. "Get reinforcements from high orbit." But the Horizon Breaker had already moved, and this time, it didn't announce itself. In less than a second, it reappeared above the Krell flagship, not jumped, not warped, just moved, effortlessly and without delay. The distance had been tens of kilometers. It had crossed it as, if distance no longer applied, the human voice returned. Final warning. This colony is not open for discussion. The Krell fleet commander stared at the display. It wasn't just the weapons, or the defense systems, or the speed. It was something else, something harder to name. The Horizon Breaker didn't posture, like a warship. It behaved like a guardian. On the colony surface, Director Hale and the civilians stared up at the sky. A new object now hung among the stars, dark, still, and unmistakably human. Children cheered. Engineers wept quietly. Everyone could feel it. They were no longer alone, and up in orbit, the Krell, once so confident, made their decision. With a single command, they broke formation and pulled away from the planet. No shots fired, no losses. Just a silent retreat. The message was clear. Earth had sent 1 ship, and that had been enough. The Horizon Breaker held its place above New Thessalon like a silent monument, motionless, patient, unshaken. Around it, the Krell ships drifted just outside effective range, maintaining uneasy formation. Though the blockade remained, its confidence had faltered. On the surface, Director Hale's command center had become a hub of quiet focus. Civilians were moved to underground shelters, not in panic, but in preparation. They trusted the ship above them, even if they didn't fully understand it. And though Director Hale hadn't been briefed on its arrival, she knew better than to question its purpose. This wasn't a coincidence. It was timing. In orbit, the Krell commander attempted another strategy. A signal was sent, not to the Horizon Breaker, but to the Galactic Concord. a formal complaint framed as concern. It accused the human vessel of aggression, of threatening peaceful oversight, and requested immediate intervention from the Concord Council. The reply, when it came, was delayed and distant. Monitoring situation. Encourage dialogue. That was all. The Krell commander clenched his jaw. Diplomacy had failed. Intimidation had failed. But perhaps observation would not. He gave a new order. Send recon drones. Keep distance. Let's see what this ship is made of. A wave of small, agile probes detached from the Krell vessels, forming a sphere around the horizon breaker. They didn't fire. They didn't scan aggressively. They simply watched. Cameras, sensors, silent trackers. The human ship did nothing. At first, then it responded. Panels along the horizon breaker's hull shifted. Not opened, shifted, like scales adjusting to light. A faint hum filled the silence, and the drones began to drift backward, not from propulsion, but from interference. Magnetic locks disengaged, guidance systems spun wildly. One by one, the drones lost control and were gently pushed away, like leaves brushed aside by a breeze. Then a signal burst outward from the horizon breaker. It wasn't a message. It was a map, a full, three-dimensional projection of the Krell. Formation appeared around the ship in real time, visible from orbit and from the surface below. Every ship, every weak point, every energy signature, every calculation of how long it would take the horizon breaker to disable them all, without a single fatality. It was not a threat. It was information, and the implications were crystal clear. In the Krell command ship, silence took over. The officers stared at the holographic projection now being displayed on their own screens. A projection they hadn't requested but could not turn off. A gesture from the human vessel, precise and undeniable. We're not here to destroy you, the message implied. But we can. Entirely. Without harming a soul. Back on New Thessalon, the people watched the glowing map in the sky. Even without understanding every technical detail, they understood the shape of what they were seeing. They were watching proof. Proof that Earth had grown in silence, that while other powers had mocked, dismissed, and ignored, humans had listened, learned, and built. And now, they had revealed just a fraction of what they could do. The Krell ships began to move, not forward, not into battle, but back. Quietly, one at a time, their formations opened. Within the hour, the last Krell ship turned and exited the system. The blockade was over. The sky returned to its familiar stillness, and the map above New Thessalon faded. The horizon breaker stayed a moment longer. Then, just as silently as it had come, it turned and vanished into the stars, folding space behind it with a soft pulse of blue light. On the colony below, cheers erupted across every street. Children danced, scientists and engineers stared at, the stars in wonder, and in the heart of the Galactic Assembly, a question was now echoing across every corridor. What else are the humans hiding? The footage from New Thessalon traveled faster than any ambassador could. Within hours, every major civilization in the Galactic conquered had seen the moment the horizon breaker arrived, and how the Krell left without a fight. Some species dismissed it as luck. Others suspected alien assistance, but the smarter ones knew better. This wasn't luck. This wasn't borrowed power. This was a warning, wrapped in silence, and it led to one unavoidable question echoing across interstellar channels. Where did the humans get that ship? The horizon breaker wasn't listed in any Concord registry. It had no blueprint in shared archives. Its hull used materials that didn't match any known classification. Its energy readings were clean, almost surgical. No waste, no trace. The technology was a generation ahead, maybe more. Earth offered no explanation. In fact, they didn't say anything at all. The silence was louder than words. On Earth's moon, inside a quiet installation carved into shadowed rock, engineers and officers stood in a wide control room watching the same footage. But they weren't surprised. There was no celebration, only quiet satisfaction and preparation. Beneath their feet, a second ship was nearing completion. Unlike the Horizon Breaker, this one was larger, wider, and designed for something different. Its nameplate read, UNS Equinox, Long Range. Support Cruiser. It was one of many, because the truth, carefully hidden behind decades of diplomatic smiles, was this: humanity had never fallen behind. From the day Earth joined the Galactic Concord, a quiet strategy had begun. While public scientists attended conferences and submitted basic research, Earth's brightest minds worked behind closed doors, guided by a single principle: observe everything, build quietly, never provoke, but always prepare. They had studied alien propulsion systems, learned from ancient archives, reverse-engineered lost technology found in derelict stations. They had watched how other civilizations fought, negotiated, and postured, and they had learned the most powerful truth of all. In a galaxy of giants, silence is often mistaken for weakness, so Earth had hidden its real capabilities, not out of fear, but out of discipline. The Horizon Breaker was not the peak, it was the prototype. Across the Sol system, humanity had been building. The moon hosted shipyards carved into regolith. Mars had been reclassified as a joint military and research facility. The asteroid belt was home to automated construction rings, shielded from scanners and cloaked in debris fields. Even Jupiter's moons served as forward bases, disguised as weather and science stations. Humanity hadn't shown restraint because it lacked power. It had shown restraint because it understood power too well. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, hidden under kilometers of water and pressure, was Earth's Strategic Defense Corps, an artificial intelligence network designed to coordinate every fleet, satellite, and deep space sensor humanity owned. It was built not just for defense but for clarity, to act only when necessary, never out of fear or pride. And now, the galaxy knew of only one ship, one moment, one warning, which was exactly the plan. In the Galactic Concord, meetings turned urgent. Security councils debated late into the artificial night. Some feared a hidden empire rising. Others wondered whether Earth had allies outside known space. A few more honest voices simply said, "We underestimated them." In backrooms and private networks, intelligence agencies from half a dozen species scrambled to gather data on Earth, its infrastructure, and its intentions. But they found little. Earth had spent 30 years being overlooked. Now that was working in their favor. Back on New Thessalon, life resumed. Farmers returned to their fields. Children played in sunlit courtyards. But everything had changed. The people no longer felt small. They felt seen, protected, heard. And across the stars, a quiet understanding began to spread. The humans were never helpless. They were just waiting. In the days following the Horizon Breaker's appearance, the stars felt quieter. Not because transmissions ceased, but because the tone had changed. Gone was the laughter. Gone were the casual jokes passed between alien diplomats. In their place was silence, thoughtful, calculating, a kind of uneasy respect. And just beneath that silence, the whispers began. Not official reports, not council statements. Just quiet questions, the kind passed over encrypted channels, whispered in military briefings, and murmured during backdoor meetings. Did you see the footage? Are they building more of those ships? Why did Earth never speak of this before? The answers were never clear. Because Earth still wasn't saying anything. They didn't threaten. They didn't gloat. They simply remained quiet. That silence only made the whispers louder. In a distant star system on the edge of Krell space, a group of small, independent worlds, long ignored by the larger empires, held a summit for the first time in over a century. These worlds had never been taken seriously. Their economies were fragile, their militaries non-existent. But now, they had something new. Hope. A representative from Earth, a civilian advisor, not even wearing a uniform, had quietly visited them days earlier. No grand speech, no demands. Just a single promise. We believe everyone deserves safety. If you're willing to stand, we'll stand with you. That was all they needed. New trade routes were proposed. Joint defense pacts drafted. For the first time, these forgotten worlds began to act, not out of fear, but out of possibility, because someone was listening now. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Concord, the High Assembly met in a rare closed session. Representatives from over 70 species gathered under the flickering banners of their worlds. Every major power had sent someone, including the Krell, who now avoided eye contact with the Terran delegate entirely. At the center of the room, Ambassador Noah Elian stood calmly. She didn't raise her voice or demand attention. She didn't need to. Everyone was already listening. The recent incident over New Thessalon, one Varnari counselor began carefully, has raised questions about Earth's military capability, about transparency, about stability. Noah finished for him gently. The room quieted. You're concerned, she continued, that our restraint means unpredictability, that our silence means secrecy, that our defense means power we've chosen not to share. Murmurs spread across the chamber. Noah nodded once. You're correct. We have chosen to grow carefully, quietly, not because we wish to hide, but because we've spent most of our history learning what happens when power is misused. We will not be another empire. We will not be another threat. She paused, her expression calm and firm. But we will protect our people, and we will remember those who stood by us and those who didn't. There was no arrogance in her voice, only clarity. That clarity echoed long after the session ended. By the end of the week, the galactic political map had shifted. New treaties formed between Earth and smaller species. Formerly neutral civilizations opened embassies on Mars and Luna. Human advisors were invited to discussions they'd never been part of before. The phrase HFZ, Human Facilitated Zone, entered diplomatic language, designating territories, under informal Terran support. Pirates began avoiding trade lanes near human colonies. Former rivals stopped patrolling close to Earth's borders. Even the Krell, once bold and unshakable, issued a formal apology, the first in their history. And, yet, through it all, Earth's official stance remained the same. We are here to cooperate, not to dominate. But everyone now understood. If you harmed a human world, you would no longer be met with outrage or petitions. You would be met with something calm, precise, and completely prepared. For the first time since humanity had joined the Galactic Concord, the assembly hall was full. Not just full, crowded. Rows that had once sat half-empty during Earth's presentations were now standing room only. Delegates from every corner of known space had arrived early. Translation systems buzzed with activity as diplomats cross-checked languages, cultural notes, and political etiquette. Even the outer tiers, typically reserved for junior observers and low-interest mediators, were packed. They had all come for the same reason, to hear what the humans would say next. Ambassador Noah Elian stood behind her desk at the circular podium, dressed in a simple navy suit bearing the silver insignia of the Terran Peace Fleet. She carried no entourage, no security, no ceremonial robe or display of rank, just her voice. The silence in the chamber was heavy, not with tension but with attention, the kind that only came when every word might matter. She looked around the room and smiled gently, almost as if greeting old friends. "Colleagues," she began, "for 30 years, Earth sat quietly at the edges of this assembly. We listened, we learned, and we believed that patience and humility would earn us a place among you." A pause. It didn't. There were no protests, only stillness. "But that's not a complaint," she said, her voice calm. "It's an observation. One we made, carefully, and responded to with equal care." She placed a small data crystal on the console in front of her. A projection appeared above the chamber. A map, not of Earth's colonies, but of human-built facilities across the galaxy. Some were known, like the peaceful agricultural stations of Vega 2. Others had never been acknowledged publicly. Hidden research outposts, shipyards cloaked by asteroid fields, relay satellites disguised as debris. "This," Noah said softly, "is what we've built, not for conquest, not for dominance, but for preparation, because even when we were not taken seriously, we still took you seriously." A soft murmur moved through the room. She tapped the crystal again, and another display appeared. This one showing the Horizon Breaker not as a warship, but in scenes over New Thessalon, evacuating civilians, shielding a hospital dome from orbital debris, jamming weapons without destruction. "This is what we chose to lead with," she said. "Not our strongest ship, not our largest fleet, just the first one, to show you not what we're capable of, but what we're willing to do." Silence again. Some delegates watched with furrowed brows. Others nodded quietly. Noah stepped away from the console. "Humanity doesn't ask for fear. We don't want reverence. We want something far simpler." She looked directly at the Krell delegation, then across the room. "Respect." The word lingered in the air longer than any applause could have. Then she bowed, just slightly, and stepped down. Toi. Chamber remained still, no buzz of conversation, no instant commentary. Just quiet reflection. Until finally, the Concord chair, a centuries-old being from the crystalline Varek species, slowly stood and said, in perfect Terran English, "Ambassador Elian, Earth's position is understood." 1. By one, delegates began to stand, a gesture of acknowledgement rarely used in the assembly, reserved for moments of historic consensus. Every major faction followed, even the Krell. Outside the chamber, reporters from dozens of worlds scrambled to relay the speech. Analysts dissected each word. Public opinion shifted almost instantly. A new narrative formed across the galaxy. The humans came in peace, but they came prepared, and for the first time in living memory, the phrase Terran-led initiative began appearing on conquered proposals, not as a courtesy, but as a strategic choice. Earth had stepped into the center, not because they demanded it, but because they'd earned it. The Galactic Concord had changed forever. What began as a quiet warning from a single human warship had grown into a turning point for an entire galaxy. Ambassador Noah Elian looked out from the observation deck of the UNS Equinox, now docked in orbit above Earth's moon. The stars outside burned bright, distant, yet familiar, reminders of a vast future waiting to be shaped. Below, on Earth and its colonies, celebrations were muted, but sincere. The world had stepped into a new chapter, no longer a cautious outsider, but a recognized player in galactic affairs, but the journey was far from over. "Noah," a voice came through the comm, gentle but insistent. Commander Jalen Merrick's tone carried the weight of experience, a reminder that leadership extended beyond speeches and politics. "We've received new data. Unidentified vessels moving near the Perseus sector, not responding to hails, not matching any known registry." Noah nodded, her eyes narrowing. "The galaxy isn't suddenly safe," she said. "We just made sure it's no longer unbalanced." "Understood." Jalen replied. Preparing a reconnaissance team. Noah turned. Back to the stars. Earth had sent one ship to New Thessalon, a message of protection. Now, the equinox represented a new era, one where humanity would take responsibility for the fragile peace they had helped secure. Across the galaxy, alliances were forming. Smaller worlds once ignored now had voices amplified by Terran support. Former rivals hesitated before aggression, knowing the humans were no longer a mystery, but with visibility came risk. Power invited scrutiny, and as new threats loomed on the edges of explored space, humanity's resolve would be tested. Yet Noah believed in the strength behind the silence. In the quiet years before the Horizon Breaker's arrival, humanity had learned patience and preparation. They had learned that true power was not about overwhelming force, but measured action, about protecting without provoking, about standing firm without arrogance. The Equinox's engines thrummed softly beneath her feet. Ready to move out, Jalen's voice crackled again. Noah smiled. Then let's show them what the future looks like. As the Equinox slipped into the void, a message broadcast from Earth's core echoed through conquered channels. We did not come to conquer the stars. We came to ensure that no one would suffer under fear again. Together, we will build a future worthy of every world. Above all, this was humanity's promise. Not just a warning or a display of strength, but a beacon of hope. The stars ahead were no longer a place of uncertainty. They were a canvas, waiting for humanity and the galaxy to paint a new story. Story, where courage, wisdom, and unity define the future. And this time, everyone would stand together.